Here we're going to explain the Ansari workflow.py, and I thought I'd explain this a little bit different. I'll read this summary that I made when I skimmed through the code, but instead of over preparing for this part of the recording, I'd rather actually explore the module and what it's called and everything with you, so that you can see like a demonstration of how I navigate the code base, and maybe you can follow something similar to what I'm doing here in the future if you see any other code that I didn't mention in this recording. Let's read together. The file aims to redefine Ansari for version 3.0. So this is a new version that we're aiming to deploy soon. I don't know if it will be deployed when this recording is out. And in that version, we hope that Ansari workflow is the main driver behind our application, instead of the ansari.py file. I'm not sure yet if we're going to still use ansari.py file or we will migrate completely to ansari workflow.py. So anyways, this is a new step that we're trying to make. And so we want to apply this workflow, which is a modular workflow to process user queries, okay? But since this is a workflow, the usage of tools, remember the recordings that I made about tools previously? This logic now will not be determined via LLM's inference anymore. So if you remember, I said that the LLM is the one that decides whether the user query requires a tool response or not. And so this determination won't be based on the LLM anymore, at least in this part, Ansari.py. Instead, the workflow steps could be defined to include tool usage for processing user queries. So based on the type of user queries which we can determine on our own, we will automatically insert a step for a tool usage within the pipeline, within the workflow that we have. These workflow steps are defined via API endpoints in main API. We'll go to this part in a second. Note, when I say note like this, it's probably a technical note, okay? Or a note regarding how to navigate things, how the code works, etc., more than the business flow or what we're trying to achieve in a general sense in the project itself. In my opinion, a good way to navigate this file is to start from the execute workflow method as its main API.py's entry point to Ansari workflow. Recursively see which method it calls and then go back to this method. So this is what I'll try to apply with you right now. I actually don't remember what I'm going to see because that recording is a few days later. So let's explore together. We'll start navigating from the execute workflow, as I said here. Again, we have multiple functions, multiple methods here. So let's just start here, execute workflow. This function handles the version 3 logic. Idea is to have Ansari execute a workflow that can be a list of steps, okay? So these are the allowed steps and they're based on the different tools that we have. Step name to function. This is a dictionary which maps each step name to the function which will execute it. And I believe some of these functions include tool usage, I think. We'll go to them promptly enough, but yeah, these are functions that we define here, methods that dictates how to answer based on the step name. Okay, let's just see an example of where this is mentioned. Maybe it will clear things up a little bit. If we go to the main API.py, we see here that in an API endpoint called API version 2 aya, okay, I'm not sure if version 2 will remain like this or be version 3. I'm not sure yet. Let's just wait out and see. If a part of the front end requires this API endpoint or calls this API endpoint, we run this function, okay, which creates an Ansari workflow instance with a specific system prompt. So this is a new system prompt other than the one that I told you about, the hello, I'm Ansari, I'm an assistant to help you, etc., etc. It's similar to that, but tailored more to requests regarding ayahs, okay, in the Quran. We define the instance, and the ayah ID, we have a way to calculate it here based on the surah and the ayah. Check if the answer is already stored in the database. Okay, all of this logic is the database, but here is the part that interests me, the workflow steps. So here, since I know I'm coming from the API endpoint here, and I know the question or the thing that I want to answer is related to ayahs, then I know that I want the workflow to be as following. We have a search step, okay, like a list of tuples, and the tuple here consists of the search step and what will pass to it, okay? The query, which is a question coming from the user from the front end, and the tool name. So if you see here, we explicitly specified the tool name to use, okay? We didn't leave the logic to the LLM to infer anymore. No, we know here that we're coming from the front end, from a part of the interface where the user wants questions related to ayahs, and so we know that we'll use that tool, okay? The tool of, for example, search tafsir is a new tool we're working on. And so yeah, we'll send that tool name here because now we know what the type of question is. And then the metadata filter, okay, all of that will be required by the Ansari workflow agent. This is a step of searching, and then to generate query, we take that input again from the user. And these parameters are other parameters that the equivalent functions that I'll show you in a second need, okay? After we do these workflow steps, we execute whatever we define them, we execute them here, okay? So again, the main thing that I want you to take from this, because I'm not going into details with each line of code here, is that we migrated the logic, the responsibility of deciding the tool to be used from the LM to infer it. We migrated that responsibility to us, okay, to the developers who who know that here we come from an endpoint that wants something related to AI. So I know that that I want to use a tool related to AI. So the responsibility is now ours to choose a tool based on where we're coming from the front end, okay? This is another way to approach things. And you can see here that these steps, workflow steps here is passed here, okay? List of tuples, the one that I showed you in a minute, and it's used here. We take the step name and step parameter, and we pass that to the output dictionary, okay? And okay, 1 second, the outputs here takes, yeah, it calls it. This is a call, and we take the step name to function, which is a dictionary. We pass to it the step name, okay, which is passed here in the main API. So if you remember here, for example, search, we said that search here is a first key. So in the first for loop iteration, we pass in search, okay? So now this part that I'm highlighting will give us back this function, okay? So this is now a function, okay? Is now this. And then since we have a function, we will call it by doing these parentheses right here and pass to it step params and outputs, which are from the workflow steps here, okay? So step params here is what I'm getting here from the main API code, okay? And the outputs we're passing it because within that function, we're using the current outputs. So for example, the first time outputs will be 0 because that's the first step. So this function, which is this function, will give us a result. This result will be appended to outputs. And then in the next iteration, we'll use the outputs, which has the results of the first step. We'll use it back as an input in the second step, okay? So can you see the loop that's happening here? Hopefully you can follow along. And this for loop will execute each of these functions based on the parameters passed in the dictionary in here, in this part, okay? And all of the outputs of these steps will be returned to us, okay? And then this output will be processed and used. So we're taking the outputs, we're using only the last one here as the Ansari answer, the final answer, and then we're returning that to the user. So this is the main logic or the main idea of using the workflow agent. The specificities of each step here, I'll leave that to you to search in. And to be honest, the documentation and the prompting here makes this semi-English like enough for you to understand once you read through them. And so I'll leave that to you. This part was related to the Ansari workflow agent. I don't think I need to explain it further. Again, the most important lesson that you can take out from this part is that the tool responsibility is now we specify that explicitly instead of letting the LLM say it itself. Okay, or at least let me search with you just to make sure. In the tool here, yeah, we're literally running it. We're running the tool. See, run as string. Remember this function? If you recall what I explained in the tools, if I go back, for example, in search Quran, where is it? Search Quran. Okay, we have run as list and run as string. I explained run as list before. That's what we used in ansari.py. So apparently, because I'm seeing this with you right now, we're using run as string in Ansari workflow here. Okay, so you will follow along. You'll just read it bit by bit, and the intricacies of this class, you'll understand it once you read the code base. Okay, so that was regarding the Ansari workflow version 3.0.